So I'm the interviewer. My name is Bob, and cameraman today will be
George E.
Georgie. And today we are joined with Jake Klein, and today's date is August 26th, 2022. So, Mr. Klein, could you tell us a bit about yourself first? So, when and where were you born?
Oh, I was born in Minnesota here. It's a little town of Richmond, Minnesota. It's between I would say St. Cloud and Wilmer. They're bigger towns, so between there. Born on a dairy farm. I had 5 sisters and 4 brothers.
Wow. So you've been in Minnesota basically your whole life then?
Pretty much.
So, what did you do when you were growing up? Like you said, dairy farm, but did you have any other like jobs? What do you do for fun?
Well, yeah, I was on a dairy farm, but I also worked at a mink ranch, and worked a little bit at the local creamery, and then I was out of high school after that.
So, out of curiosity, like, what was the population of Richmond?
Oh, Richmond was pretty small. I really grew up in a little town, 10 miles from there, called Eden Valley.
Eden Valley.
Yeah, and I think there was 400 or 500 people. Small town.
So, you're going up to the military. So, when you're growing up, were you like hearing about the war, and like what got you motivated to enlist?
Well, I was actually accepted for 2 trade schools, but Vietnam was going on, and I said, I might as well just enlist.
Did you ever complete your trade schools?
No, didn't go back. I actually worked for a welding shop and welding and machine shop for a while. But as far as formal training, no.
Do you remember if any like specific event like kind of instilled you to enlist, or was it just like hearing about the news?
Actually, I heard about a lot of Army stuff in Vietnam, and I said, well, I don't want to be in the Army. So I joined the Navy. Ended up there anyway.
So how does that work? Like if you tried to enlist Navy, but then somehow they just directed you Army?
Well, I enlisted in January, and I did not want to go to the Great Lakes for basic training in January. So I said I'd join if I could go to San Diego. So I went to San Diego, and going to boot camp in San Diego, most of the people went west from there. So they went to the Pacific, where the people that were if they went in Florida or Great Lakes, you went east in the Atlantic area.
So like how did your family, friends in this small like little rural town respond to you enlisting?
Enlisting wasn't so bad. Coming back from Vietnam, it was more of a cold shoulder kind of thing. But they still supported their military people, their service people.
So you mentioned that you went down to San Diego to train. So what type of training did you guys do?
Well, I had basic training there, and then also radioman school for radioman, and then from there, half of my radio school went to Yokosuka, Japan, and the other half went to Okinawa. I went to Okinawa.
So did you get to decide that you wanted to become a radio man, or did they kind of just choose for you?
No, you take tests, and I guess I scored too high in Morse school. I really wanted an aviation structural mechanic. So, but they needed radiomen, so there I went.
So during basic training, like, how hard was it? Was it like fit the stereotype of basic training?
We were right next to the Marine boot camp, so our boot camp was mild compared to what we saw over there.
Probably made it a bit more bearable.
Well, yeah, it was. There was just a fence between the Marines and the Navy in San Diego. So we would be finished with our training for the day, and we'd still see them out there training.
So just to clarify, right now you're being trained under the Army or for Navy?
Navy.
Navy. So then when did you like transition over to become like more of a communications, or is that always just Navy?
It was always in the Navy.
Always Navy.
Yeah. When I got to Okinawa, I was in a, most of the time there, I was in a radio receiver site, and we would find frequencies that were clear for ship to shore. So Okinawa is about 4 to 8 miles wide, 65 miles long. The southern half is, well, they grew sugar cane in the southern half, and the northern half is more mountainous, and so you know, you got good line of sight communications then too. So it was good to have our radio receiving stations in Okinawa.
Going back to your like basic training,
Mm-hmm.
you have any like interesting but funny stories that happened within your group?
Not really. We had a training for fire safety, and the instructor asked one of the guys, "Is that valve open or closed?" And he said, "Closed. Give your clipboard away and get in front of that valve." And they turned on the water, and it was open. So that was one of the funny things.
So did you have to train to be like on ships because you were in the Navy, or were you just more?
Right. You trained to like, you learned how to fight fire with water, because you got a lot of water on a ship, right? So even oil fires, how to put fires out. And then I think it was a lot of discipline. You know, you had your running and stuff like that. You had physical exercise that you did. When we did guard duty, you learned to keep a log so that anybody could read it. So, I mean, it was things that you'd need on a ship.
So you guys all trained together, like all the sailors, all like.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on to like more when you were on duty, like after.
Mm-hmm.
So like when did you get shipped out to Okinawa?
I was let's see, summer of 68, 60, yeah, summer of 68, I suppose. Spring, summer. I was there for a year and a half.
Was the weather like Because it's Okinawa. You went from San Diego to Okinawa. I'm assuming the weather's probably a bit.
Okinawa is similar, I would say, to Vietnam in that it was usually your temperature in the summer ranged from 70 to 90, and in the winter time it was like 50 to 70. You know, it was like that. Monsoon season was different. It was you'd see the rain look like it was drifting uphill. You know, that's how much wind and was with the monsoon. Most of my time in Okinawa, I was at a radio receiver site, which was we had long wire antennas between two poles. When we'd have an earthquake, those wires could dance because the poles are doing this, and it's like if you had a piece of string in between. And
Would the monsoons like also kick up the wires?
more wind and rain. When the monsoons came, they took all the aircraft and flew them to Guam. And it was just, we had it when I first went to the receiver site. It was a Quonset hut. That was our building, and the wind was so strong that it would blow water underneath the curved roof, and so it would drip sometimes. Most of my commands I was at was small commands. When I got there, they grew. We stayed in our barracks were Quonset huts too at first, and as I left, then they were building more cement barracks.
So what would happen if those wires that they used to connect the huts like happened to break or fall apart?
Oh, for the communications?
Yeah.
We never had it happen.
So they're built pretty tough?
Yeah.
So could you like describe more about your assignment or your job?
My assignment there was to, if let's say a ship like couldn't communicate that their signals were getting messed up, then I would go on a receiver and find a frequency that was not being used and get it cleared, and then I would use a machine that would cryptograph the messages electronically. So it was like a, I guess I would tell you, you put a card into this machine, you get a signal clear, you get the two receivers in phase, they call it, and then when you close the door on a crypto machine, it cuts the card in half. So nobody can open the door and close it again for that card. Once that card is cut, that's it. You know, so it was. My clearance was top secret crypto for that job.
So did you deal mainly with like military vessels, or did you ever have to deal with any civilian?
No, it was all ships, and yeah, there at Okinawa. In Vietnam, I dealt with the civilian population more.
So when you're in Okinawa, like how was who were you with, and kind of what did you guys do outside of actually working?
Well, there when I wasn't working, I'd like to go snorkeling or sightseeing the island. I didn't see. After I left the island, I found out more I could have seen. Okinawa was used by the Japanese. There are a lot of a lot of caves and stuff. And I found out later I could have looked at more caves. Now, when we were in Okinawa, the Air Force was big in the center of the island, much bigger than the Navy was. But so we were able to use their hobby shops. So I took up photography, and there we could develop and print our own black and white film, and I did a lot of that. I did some snorkeling. I did once in a while. I shot a lot of bow and arrow because it was something I could do in the back, you know. But it was really nice. The duty there was good, I thought.
So, this is going to be a bit of a deviation, but like, what was the food like on the island? Because you're...
Oh, I thought it was good. I came from a big family. You just eat. Eat what you're given, and we had good food. We had really good food. It was... can't say I didn't like it, you know.
Did you guys mingle a lot with like the Air Force, or were you mostly separate?
No. We worked weird hours. I think there I was working 12 hours on, 12 off, and sometimes we worked. We'd work 12 on, 12 off. And then when the weekend came, we worked 18 on, 18 off. So that would flip you from working days to nights.
Did you ever find it hard to like stay awake on 18-hour long shifts?
Nah. I think you pretty well were ready for it coming, you know.
So like, when you were doing your communications, was it like always you had something to do, or is it something like you had a lot to do and then like a break?
Most of our communications there was radio teletype. So and I didn't work a lot down in the communications center. Most of my work was with the signal end of it, to get the good signals from the ships. And then they would process the messages and send them on at the communications center.
So was your like little hut located like pretty high up?
Up on the hill. Yep, we were up on the hill over the airport, and that gave us the best area, unobstructed area for the receivers, for the long wire receivers.
Did you guys just like live up on the mountain, or do you have to like hike up, hike down?
No, it wasn't a very big place in the first place, you know. So it was just we were just on the higher part of the hill. Now you just, it wasn't far between the communications and where we slept.
Okay, so you said that you were only on Okinawa for 1.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then after that, did you go to Vietnam?
Yep. Because we were in communications, we knew a long time before we went to Vietnam that we were going there. Because anybody that had had more than a year left in their service went to Vietnam from Okinawa. So yeah, we knew.
Were you guys like looking forward to it, or kind of dreading it?
We didn't know what to expect. I didn't come home the whole time I was in Okinawa, because it's halfway around the world. I told you that half the radio guys went to Yokosuka, Japan, and the other half went to Okinawa. from our class. Well, my good friend that I lifted weights with was in Yokosuka, Japan. So I wrote to him and asked if I could, check with the master at arms and see if I could stay in the barracks and we could go sightsee in Japan. So I borrowed a buddy $100 and we took a military hop to Japan and were there for 13 days. So we'd travel wherever, when my buddy had off, we would travel together, and otherwise I would go by myself. Or we traveled on the bullet train, which is a really fast train. I met some kids at a park, entertainment park, that when I got talking with them, they were going to the 5 Lakes of Mount Fuji and asked if I'd like to go with. So I said, sure. So we went, saw Mount Fuji and the 5 Lakes, and they made sure I had a place to stay before they left. And
sounds like great hospitality.
Yeah, it was. Well, the Japanese have to take 6 years of English in school.
Really?
So they really enjoyed speaking to someone that spoke English. So yeah, I had a good time with them that whole day.
So what was your most memorable experience, or was that it in Japan?
In Japan? I think it was seeing people, visiting with the people. I went there twice, so it was nice. One of the things I think that I did and I liked that I did it is I always traveled second class, because it would force me to talk with people, and it was fun. I enjoyed that.
So after your trip to Japan, did you then go to Vietnam, or do you first come home?
I came home, and when I came home, it was during the hippie time, and I had been gone 18 months. So when I came home and saw what had happened, I was ready to just leave. I couldn't believe it, It was because you are really, I would say, you're so structured in the service that you kind of lose touch with the outside world. So yeah, it was a big change when I came back.
Did you hear about what was happening in America through the news when you were in Japan, or was it just you plopped down and just experience?
Most of the news was military news, so you heard what they wanted you to hear. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
So how long were you back in the U.S. before getting deployed?
I think a month.
A month? Were you in Minnesota, or were you?
Yeah, I was in Minnesota. I was in Minnesota. That was in October. And we were sent to Coronado, back in California, for training. And then we were, depending on where we were being stationed in Vietnam, depended on what kind of training you got. If you were being stationed more north, then you went, like my buddy went through the survival training there. His training was more strict. They actually even took him into a mock prisoner of war camp.
Oh.
So, yeah. So they would do things to him they might experience in a prisoner of war camp.
So what did your like training entail?
Mine was a little bit of the language for emergency things. The guys that were going toward Da Nang, they had more strict survival kind of training than we had. There wasn't a lot. There wasn't a real lot of training. I mean, I was being stationed south of Saigon for my first 6 months, so I was further away from Da Nang. It was a small command. It was good. I enjoyed Nabe, which is what the town's name was, and what Nabe was for the Navy was really we had communications there, but they also had a fiberglass shop where they patched up river patrol boats that were damaged. So it was good duty.
So you mentioned that you dealt some with civilians.
My second 6 months, I was stationed in a place called Rakya, and it's close to the Laotian border. While I was there, I would visit with people, and I was talking to a South Vietnamese army man, and he asked me if I would help him teach English at the high school. And I said, sure, why not, Wednesday nights. And I was drinking too much anyway, so I had prayed about it and wanted a way to quit, have something to do. So after 2-3 weeks, there was some students asked me if I would tutor them also, tutor them besides teaching. And I said, sure, why don't we meet on Mondays and Fridays? So it was a few weeks went by, and some more students asked me if I would tutor them. And I said, sure, how about on Tuesdays, Thursdays? So every night I had something to do.
I need to restart this.
Okay, no problem.
It's only take like 30 minutes.